Ruin retirement? You can't. Everywhere you look these days, there are folks predicting that you can ruin retirement. I say nope to that. It's not been my experience at all, either in these years of my 70s or as a conclusion from my whole life. I'm not buying it. These years are about growing, adventuring, discovering new things in the world and about yourself, experimenting, finding joy, profound insights that you have about living. To me, that's not ruination, that's richness. Now, I could give you 1,000 which ways where you couldn't possibly ruin your retirement, but I'm going to stick to 7 things that I think matter the most as we sort out what retirement means to all of us, either as we're approaching it or as we're living it. Let me get started, and I'll show you what I mean. Before I get super duper going, please hit that subscribe button. It lets YouTube know that we seniors really appreciate content that's authentic and that pertains to the way we live our lives. And the like button, that really helps me out personally. I get to the end of the day and life can be a little exhausting. You know how it is when you're a little older. That would be really nice. And thanks. I think you'll notice as I speak that I have a much more optimistic view of retirement than folks who are preaching ruination. And I'm speaking from experience. I've had serious ups and downs in my life. It might have looked to someone else that I was ruining my retirement. But I think you can see from me, as we're conversing right now, it doesn't look like I've ruined my retirement. So my point of view comes from there. And my overall message is for you to feel encouraged by what I have to say. And not to dwell in fear, because maybe life has been unpredictable for you, or perhaps you're imagining that the future could bring ruination as well. That's not at all what I'm about. And that's an experience thing. Let me start my little list. Item number 1, retirement is not a fragile state. It's not something you could break as though you tripped and dropped your favorite vase. Not happening. Retirement is years of life, of growing, of being, of trying new things, and experiencing sometimes terrible outcomes. But it's not something you can break as though it slips through your fingers from some misstep you had in your pre-retirement years. And consider this. Ruination implies that there have been no other missteps in your life. And we know that living, there's going to be missteps. We have 60, 70, 80, 90 years, some of us, experiencing those. They're an aspect of being human. Whether it's because we knocked over the glass of milk at the dining room table and Dad got all fussed up about it. Accidents happen. Was it a ruinous mistake when you were up studying all night in college, A student, and you overslept the organic chemistry final? How about if you break down on the highway because you forgot to check the gas gauge? A little misstep. Major consequences for a day or 2 or 3, but a life ruined from a little breakage here and there? I don't think so. And what if it just happens that you make some minor choice, or at least it seems like that at the time, and you end up meeting your maker? Is that ruination? I don't think so. I think it's life. So let's discard the idea that you could make some misstep leading up to retirement or in your retirement years that would ruin your life. Item number 2, there's retirement fantasy and there's retirement reality. That's true for everyone. Everyone. Why? We all know this. We don't get to make our life happen the way we want to. Our skill is in dealing with the moment, with addressing risk, maybe. But can we control everything in an outcome? No. And for me personally, I'd be bored as heck if I could control my life in advance. What I'm saying is, retirement, it's not going to be your fantasy anyway. It isn't for anyone. And that's the spice of life. It might come out better than you've ever envisioned. That would be me. You might go through some unhappy years. That will likely be all of us, or at least months. It's a factor in aging. There are things to grieve. We get ill. We get old, we can't move. We lose our minds, some of us. And no, perhaps none of those things are what we fantasize about as we thought about retiring, as we planned for retirement. But heck, those are the reality, and they're the great equalizer. Not things you plan for. You can't plan to never get ill, to never see a friend die, to feel left out at Thanksgiving dinners. The losses that come to us as we age, all of us. And those experiences are not a ruin. They're life. You don't get to forestall those. That's just how it is. Here's where the ruined retirement folks really get under my skin. Item number 3. Almost always they're talking about money. It's a scare tactic. For whatever reason. Maybe they're wanting you to buy something surreptitiously, if not overtly. Or maybe they're out for clicks. I don't care. It's not how I look at the world. Fear-mongers want you to believe that bliss is dollars in the bank. Newsflash, it's not. Not only that, we learned that in grade school, that money doesn't bring happiness. We've chanted that all our lives. And those of us who don't have a lot of it, many of us in this community, we know that for a fact. But here's my real problem with the focus on dollars. In my experience, focusing on dollars as a measure of a good retirement, the most dollars possible, the A+ retirement, it puts an incredible burden on us as people. Because it's as though happiness is measured just like money. I know from our community here, many of us have humble incomes. Yet, we have found enormous riches in retirement. Because the richness, it's not in dollars. It's in growth, joy, happiness, enjoying parts of ourselves that we didn't know about before, learning new things, connecting with different kinds of people. It's about becoming fuller, not stashing away dollar bills. But here's my other point when it comes to dollars. And maybe this is even more important. The whole idea that you better save because otherwise you'll have a miserable retirement, it layers on pressure that makes life difficult. When you were 4, you knew that Santa would come if you were good. The problem was, you didn't know exactly how kind of good you had to be. That's a problem for a 4-year-old. Same kind of problem if you're pressured about dollars and expecting a ruined retirement if you don't get it right. Or if you have a life accident and it doesn't work out that way. There's no A+ scoring for your life where you end up in heaven. You do your best. You work at it. And then you see what happens, because that's all you can do. There's no guarantees. And if you spend your life pressured about having a lot of dollars in the bank or else you'll ruin your retirement, consider the pressure. Once you realize there's actually no ruining retirement, it's just a different phase of life, different experiences. I can enrich it in different ways, but money isn't the only one. And it might not be the most important one for me. So one of the pieces I really resent about this whole idea that you could ruin retirement, it's not just that it's cynical, it's judgmental. And it's a judgment about someone's life and who they are. Why do you get to set the rules? You don't get to grade a life. It's not a thing. And you won't end up in the world of satisfactory ever if you think it is. This brings me to number 4, and this might be the most important thing I have to say. In my experience, the retirement years, I'm now in my 70s, and also from communicating with viewers on this channel. For many of us, it's a time of enormous growth. That's the very opposite of ruination. And I have observed, and I see that in myself, it's not about dollars, folks. Money in the bank can make things a little bit easier, for sure. I've learned more about myself in these years than I ever learned during my work life. That's rich. And I've seen so many others blossom at this stage. They're excited about who they are or who they've become. This can be about a life well lived, but I'm often seeing in the community here surprises at the life being lived now, enjoying new facets of themselves, full capabilities they didn't know they had, artistic gifts that they'd never encountered, playfulness with life, sparkly brains. Far from being ruinous, as far as I can tell, is a huge delight. It's magical. This brings me to item number 5. The folks that are making proclamations that you're likely to ruin your retirement if you don't do things this way and that way, according to them. I see what they have to say. I listen. And I've been around people like that. And the thing about being a little old lady, I feel free to notice that most of the time, they're too young to know what they're talking about. A 60-year-old, and I know there are many of us 60-year-olds in this conversation right now, hasn't been through the intense processes that you go through right around 65. Very often, that's the end of a job, but there's so much more to it than that. To my mind, downsizing is an even more dramatic process than retiring. There's a huge difference between folks who haven't gone through the downsizing process and those who have. And I don't mean decluttering. I mean major decisions about who you are and what you see about your life going forward. That's downsizing. It's reimagining a life. That's an intense process and can be very lengthy. Not only that, most of us who have been through it feel that it's very much transformed us. We found new spaces beyond it. new riches, places we can grow. You can't see that in your 50s, when you're 60. It's a growth phase that hasn't come your way yet. And for those who are that age, younger-ish than 65-ish, just wait till you've moved on a few years. I think you'll see what I mean. And you may just be delighted to find out it wasn't the way you predicted. And for all the mistakes you might have made when you were younger, there's no ruin there. It's just living. And you get to live like anyone else. So I'm not giving fear-mongers any kind of authority to make a judgment about what my life could be. No credence at all. They don't know. They might know in the future. Maybe even next year. A little bit more wisdom might set in, or some experience. The experience of moving through this phase of a life. They're not there yet. How is that? Because moving into the retirement years really reshapes things. And this is one of my most crucial points here. It's item number 6. Processing through the retirement years, and it's a fairly long phase in my experience. It's a time of enormous growth. Frankly, I've never experienced this much growth personally in my life. For whatever reason, either because I've acquired greater wisdom in the course of time, or because I've dispensed with some of my responsibilities. Maybe there's less drama in my life, and maybe there's less stuff. Out on the other side, this has been an extremely creative period of my life. That's how I've come to these videos. I don't think I've been as creative since my early 20s. It's quite wonderful. And on reflection and observation, I've noticed that's true for many people. I'm not just saying this about me. Perhaps it's for this reason. This is one of the only times in our entire lives, this retirement phase, when society expects us to do something different. They don't bat an eyelid if we break out in some brand new direction. In fact, they kind of expect it. I mean, it might mean moving to Florida, living for a few years on a cruise ship, inviting a foreign student to live with you for a year, getting in a van and traveling around the country, or simply realizing that what you really need is a big rest. Not a whole lot of people have much quarter if they tell you you can't do that, because it's kind of expected that when you finish your work years, you just might. And the wonder of it all, as you pass through these years, you could say, well, maybe in the 20s I had an option to do all kinds of things. But this is very different from your 20s, yeah? Now you have all this wisdom from decades. But here's the thing. Are you going to look back on your 20s and you pretty much pilfered it away? Did it ruin your life? I think not. I don't think we'd ever say that. The whole idea of ruining your life, it's not a thing. Sure, you might have done some things differently. That's true for all of us, every age. But ruining a retirement because you're not behaving, because you didn't behave, because you won't behave, it's not a thing. And besides, who gets to decide? And what I'm saying is, in general, our culture kind of expects you to have new spaciousness, to find something new. That flies in the face of ruination. Finding something new is kind of spectacular. Just saying. And finally, to wrap it all up In case you didn't guess, I'm going to rub it in. Ruination, it's believing people like that, who promise that you can somehow or other ruin your retirement. And they'll tell you the ways. They can't. There is no ruin. There's life. Life has ups and downs. It has causes and consequences. Many of them you can't predict, you can't anticipate, you can't plan for. And for me, I'd rather sit here exploring my new existence. Every day is different. I see people around me with nothing and thriving. Did they anticipate they were going to be there? Maybe not. Do they think of it as ruinous? No. They haven't ruined their lives. They found something special, many of them. And they're happy to be where they are. So let's not listen to this ruin retirement language. That's my 7. I think those things matter the most, but I'm sure you have other ideas as well. Write them in the comments. I really think we should be talking about these. About the difference between racking up dollars in the bank, pressure, 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 as though there was some magic number that would make your retirement happy-chappy. They're wrong. That's enough for me. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll talk soon, all right? See you then.